Canada, once again victorious in an international tournament. Overtime against the U.S., overtime winner, and the torch has been passed.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, February 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers and on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. You can follow the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. If you're on the YouTube, make sure to press that like button down below. So, Canada defeats the United States by a final score of 3-2 in overtime, and there was a lot of hype going into this game. And for the Four Nations face-off, this is what fans wanted. They wanted USA, Canada, and it was amplified with everything with the political discourse going on between the two countries. But Canada comes out victorious in this one, a 3-2 overtime win for the Canadians, with Connor McDavid scoring 8 minutes and 18 seconds into the OT period. And once again, Canada is victorious. Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart are champions in this Four Nations face-off, and the Team USA had to do it without Matthew Tkachuk. 11 minutes into the second period, did take a 5-second shift in 3 minutes left in the second period, did not play the rest of the way. And joining me to break down this 3-2 Canada win over the United States in the Four Nations face-off final, a successful tournament for the NHL, is Florida Panthers historian Francisco Oporta, sitting in for Nick Fairbanks. Francisco, welcome to the show. And man, that has been the best hockey I have watched in a long time. And although I was cheering for the United States, I will say, as a hockey fan overall, I was quite pleased with the type of game that we got.
The NHL couldn't have scripted it any better, really. I mean, sheesh. This has been the best all-star break format of any sort that, I mean, maybe the NHL has ever conceived of, but definitely has surpassed anything that's going on with the other leagues as well. Let's get these guys together. And I think the NHL is uniquely qualified to do this. Maybe the other league, that would probably be baseball, that could uniquely do something like this, have a small tournament in the middle of the season with international teams because of the NHL's, I guess, diversity with regards to other nations, right? You have Canada, the USA, all the European countries as well. So I think that baseball is really the closest one to that, and the NHL can do this. The NBA can't really do this because Team USA is usually dominant in the international play, and there wouldn't be enough NBA players to field several other teams. So, but even then, the fact that you got all this buy-in from every player that participated in this tournament, in a tournament that is not IHF sanctioned or anything like that, is the NHL's baby that they created just for this, just because they haven't sent their players to a major tournament during the season. No Olympic hockey until, well, next year actually. And they got all this buy-in from these guys who played their heart out, like their hearts out completely. Guys got injured during this that have to go back to their teams. And one of our guys just got injured. All right. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But to see how much they were in it and into it, you can't have it any better than that. And we've been seeing the discourse from on ESPN with PK Subban talking about why the NHL players and this tournament has been so much better compared to like the NBA players. It's just that you have guys that actually care about this. And that's the difference here. And everybody who's watched this tournament got their money's worth.
Yeah, and to think that the ticket price to even get in the building, they said on the broadcast that it went up to $2,200 to get in, while the prices a week ago, even before the Canada-Sweden game started, was like around 200. So just the price spike for this one. And yeah, going to, when it comes to different leagues and their ability to do this, I mean, football is mostly American for them, and basketball, I mean, it's either USA, France, Spain, or Argentina. I mean, but you could argue a little bit that, but it's mostly USA winning it. So yeah, baseball recently with the Caribbean series that happened this year. I mean, it's mostly club teams, so it's not the same. It's not the same as getting all stars together outside of the World Baseball Classic. So I mean, it's they hit it out of the park. And if anyone ever questions the timing on when this tournament should be, and everyone wants it before the season, I hope people can rewind to this time of the year of getting it to this part of the season where everything is just, the attention is there, and there's that little break right before baseball opening day. Although ESPN and Major League Baseball, they decided to opt out of their deal after this year. The news broke today on that. So it's just really an opportunity to truly move the needle for the NHL as a whole, for thanks to this tournament. And to think that it's the possibility of that as a one-off a tournament. Four Nations is not going to be a thing come next year or beyond that. And the fact that the NHL had that idea come last year when they officially announced it, to at least get something going as the appetizer, I mean, couldn't have done it any better here. But let's get right to the game here, where it's funny because compared to the last matchup between USA and Canada, I mean, what adjustments that Canada made, where it was Canada setting the tone with run and gun style for them, which I tweeted even before the first goal, that this style that's going on right now is favoring Canada. And look what happens. 4:48 into it. Sam Reinhart wins a puck battle, gets to Nathan MacKinnon and skates. And then there's the crossing with Thomas Harley to confuse Brady Tkachuk, and then he gets it through Connor Hellebuyck for that. And then, I mean, it slowed down a little bit after Dylan Larkin gets a breakaway for them. But also, there were so many different moments where in this game where you see a little bit of adjustments, guys stepping up. Mike Sullivan, once again, on another line change for Team USA. This was before Matthew Tkachuk went out. They put Auston Matthews with Brady and Matthew, and it results in
the Arizona line.
Yeah, the Arizona line. Yes, Scottsdale and Phoenix for them. And to think that the wraparound was actually missed, it was like a little bit of an excuse me. It's kind of like a check swing in baseball, the excuse me swing, and then gets it to Brady Tkachuk, and then a knuckler goes to the back of the net. And then Brady Tkachuk, once again, a wrecking ball here for Team USA. And then putting Jack Eichel with Jake Gensel and Matthew Boldy. And to think that every time McDavid stepped onto the ice, it was Mike Sullivan countering with Jack Eichel there. Them getting the last change was a big luxury for them, contained, although Connor McDavid did score in the end. And then the amount of times that Jacob Slavin stepped up with spinning around and taking an opportunity away from Sidney Crosby, and then that slide on 3-on-2 to block it with his shin. Like, if there's multiple guys who have gotten their stocks up, is Jacob Slavin, Brady Tkachuk, and those are some guys who had definitely boosted their stock. And Sam Bennett, I'll give it to Sam Bennett as well. Drew a penalty, the only penalty of the game, only one which, funny enough, that was by Vincent Trocheck, and then scoring that game tying goal on the big mistake by JT Miller, not looking at Adam Fox as he was trying that breakout pass.
Yeah. Gosh, man. Yeah, Jacob Slavin was. They couldn't stop talking about him, and I guess a lot of people. I mean, it's not really pretty, but he gets Lady Bing trophy and that type of stuff, and he's been with Carolina his entire career, and I'm sure he's just like this fun little secret that the Canes have, and I'm sure the Canes fans love him and don't want him noticed by anybody else. But yeah, he came up. He stepped up to play as well. I mean, there was that power play that during that power play that Canada had with Jack Eichel, stick broke, and he kicked it over. He was able to get his skate in there and kicked it over to one of his guys, and they were able to clear that puck. And we're even pushing on the shorthand attempt as well for Team USA. So there was a point in that game where it looked like Team USA was about to really.
Dylan Larkin was a big part of that.
Yeah, exactly. Once that went through, it seemed like the momentum completely shifted to Team USA, and it didn't really feel even until Sam Bennett broke through himself and evened it up. And then after that, it was just, oh no. And you could see it. You could see it was like, this game's going overtime. This game is going overtime. And you could probably see Gary Bettman probably in his suite there, just like, yes. This is beautiful. Please, let's do this. Yes, like of course, a hockey game of this magnitude goes to overtime, because why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't we have a replica of the 2010 gold medal game in Vancouver? Why not? And why not have, the passing of the torch, as you had said, from one superstar to another, new generation?
Yeah, and to think that how Jordan Binnington had that stop right before the goal, just a few minutes before that in overtime, as it was a flip, Matthew shot, and then Brady Tkachuk on the short side, and then it's like,
I know that they gave Connor McDavid that player of the game, but man, Jordan Binnington earned player of overtime because man, oh man, that it felt like the USA was gonna take it. It just felt like it.
Yeah, let's actually continue that conversation on Jordan Binnington and just the style of play that USA played that actually was in my opinion enough to get the win, but just one little mistake happened in the overtime period that led to the game-winning goal by Connor McDavid. As we said, the passing of the torch. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you guys all about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment number 2 here on this Friday, February 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm here with Francisco Oporta, Florida Panthers historian, to discuss the Canada's 2-1 win over the United States in the Four Nations face-off to win gold and get the Four Nations face-off trophy, which is going to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. That's what was discussed prior to it. So for the USA, they didn't allow really a sustained forecheck by Team Canada. Really, they contained Connor McDavid as far as his space. There were times where I was seeing him get open and getting a step, but the passes weren't connecting tape to tape. I saw it on like 2 or 3 occasions that it was happening, and I said it. The USA is lucky that they're not connecting for on Connor McDavid for those passes and just getting into the middle. And even there was a backdoor feed that JT Miller saved. I believe it was from Mitch Marner to Connor McDavid that he stopped that didn't. And there were times where there was a lot of space in between the goaltenders being on top of their crease to the net. I spoke about it even on that shorthanded breakaway for Team USA, where Dylan Larkin and JT Miller were going up the ice, and you saw Jordan Binnington kind of freaking out a little bit for them. So that was and to think that even after the second period, Canada had 3 more minutes of offensive zone time over the USA for them. But like we said, with the stops that Jordan Binnington made, player of the tournament went to Nathan MacKinnon. He got a goal in the tournament. It's funny because you think about passing the torch to McDavid, but man, if Nathan MacKinnon is any other generation, we would talk about him just as much as McDavid. But the story for me is just the amount of doubts that people had on Jordan Binnington. He did not give up the softie in this championship game. We saw it in the first 3 games, the preliminary round. We've seen how shaky he's been in St. Louis. I even spoke about his playoff performances, like that. Last year was a down, but the year before was actually, he was the least of the Blues' issues for them. I mean, the conversation has to be over for anyone doubting Jordan Binnington. And no matter what happens from here until we get to Milano Cortina next year, he's a starter. Even if he's like an 888 save percentage, you got to give it to him. You got to give the crease to him in a situation like this, because not once, but twice winning a championship game in Boston. And before I give it to you, Brad Marchand getting booed in Boston. Kind of odd, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, Binnington kept Canada alive there because that overtime period, that there was that point. Team USA had it right there, and he just came up with these massive, miraculous stops, and this game could have been completely over. As far as your analysis on McDavid and how Team USA, for the most part, kept them in check, he had to basically do a little bit of ISO, trying to make some things happen, trying to get some passes. But, they left him alone one time, right there in the middle of the slot. He's right there. And so that was just a beautiful scenario for him. Didn't happen in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, which is great. Great for us. Great that the situation like that did not happen with Connor McDavid. But, as far as the tournament is concerned, what about our guys like Sam Reinhart, Sam Bennett? Bennett scores the game-tying goal for Team Canada there. Sam Reinhart, throughout the tournament, he was third in points as well. So, or fourth in points, actually, fourth in points. So he came to play with some of his assists there. So, I'm glad for our guys. Matthew Tkachuk was definitely a catalyst for Team USA to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, for us Panthers fans, he was injured. He was not seen once that second period. Like, he was not seen for 7 minutes straight, and then hit the ice and couldn't stay out there. And you obviously the entire makeup of this game would have been different if he was still playing, if he was healthy. Kind of getting to some PTSD flashbacks to the 2023 Stanley Cup Final when he was injured, and that could have been a different series if he was healthy. But I'm really happy for our guys. Barkey got a goal as well for Finland there. So the Panthers sent the most representatives to this tournament. So, and getting some spotlights on our guys too. During the broadcast, obviously Sam Bennett and how Team Canada, or I think Rick Tocchet or John Cooper were saying, like, you need a guy like Sam Bennett on your hockey team. And the Panthers have Sam Bennett on our hockey team. I'm hoping he stays there. I know some people want to move him for the trade deadline, but I don't know. I kind of like having him around.
No way.
And then you've got Sam Reinhart, and praising Sam Reinhart, his goal scoring abilities. He's got the second most goals in the last 2 seasons in the NHL, only behind Auston Matthews. So highlighting our guys, this tournament's been really great for us.
No doubt. And to think that the shortening of the bench that you have to obviously shorten the bench in not just in an international tournament, but in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And obviously, situationally for the Team USA with Tkachuk's injury, Chris Kreider at one point didn't see the ice for a little while as well. And it didn't help for Team USA that Kyle Connor was a healthy scratch here. Yes, he struggled throughout the tournament, but that's a 30-goal scorer that you're taking off of your roster for them as well. So I don't know how much of a difference you would have made here for Team USA, but you're taking away someone who could just who has a rocket of a shot, who may be undersized a little bit for him, but definitely could try to create something for at least when the bodies aren't front for Team USA, as they found a way to at least get there at times. And really the difference was the ability to get to the blue paint for that. There was that point where you saw that death there from Connor Hellebuyck to the referee in the beginning of the game, where it took it took a little while for them to blow the whistle.
He's like, when are you guys gonna blow the whistle? Because they were just hacking at him. That was towards the beginning of the game, especially because that was when Canada's strategy was just try and get as many bodies in front of him and just try and bother him up close rather than trying to pepper him from the outside. And I mean that's how they scored their goals, is to try and get bodies out of his line of sight. That Nathan MacKinnon goal was, a snipe. It was fantastic. It just
didn't notice it until the end.
And just you just couldn't get it on the blocker after that. So I saw that. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, and for just there was a stat going into this one where Connor Hellebuyck didn't allow a medium to low danger chance past him around. This was the first game that we saw, and it's funny. The first goal, a Winnipeg Jet in net and a Colorado Avalanche doing it to him, which, funny enough, before Connor McDavid scored that goal for Canada for the winner, it was two Americans playing as for their club teams being Canadian. And then on Canada's team, their first two goals were from players who play for American teams. So I thought that was, as Alanis Morissette says, dual citizen, by the way, of the United States and Canada. Isn't it ironic when it comes to that? But once again, the Team Canada finds a way to win, and it's because they fell out of their structure. Off a face-off, Auston Matthews and Adam Fox, where Adam Fox, it's not the best of tournaments for him. Auston Matthews, he played especially well in the Finland game, but just one mistake leaving McDavid open on that face-off, where, funny enough, I joked around about it being a Toronto Maple Leaf happening for them, and then all the quotes on the internet of that picture of Auston Matthews saying it's Game 7, and it's just one bad assignment, and even Connor McDavid admitted after the game that it wasn't the best game for him, so he credited where credit was due for the USA for how they played, with how there was very little open ice, which, again, I spoke about it with Jacob Winans a few days ago, how this was a tournament for that Jack Hughes. For his speed, they really also limited him. He was also basically a non-factor for Team USA in this tournament. But let's actually flip the page to the third and final segment, where now guys are going to go to their club teams and play a game on Saturday. And I don't know how they're going to manage this after the emotions that we saw throughout this outstanding tournament. But we're going to have to turn the page here. We'll discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you guys all about Select Quote. And in sports, having a winning strategy is everything. That's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, the Olympics, and even the Four Nations Face-Off Final. That goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, that they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets Select Quote apart is their personal touch. Unlike any other brokers, one-size-fits-all policy, their licensed agent tailored coverage to fit your unique needs. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. Go to selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL today to get started. That's selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Third and final segment here on this Friday, February 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday. Here with Florida Panthers historian Francisco Oporta here on the show. And crazy enough, not just the Florida Panthers, but the NHL as a whole has to quickly turn around just one day in between this and back to their club teams, which is so strange thinking how the excitement for international hockey. I mean, ESPN/ABC is going to have a doubleheader at 12:30 and 3 o'clock on Saturday, and then there's going to be more nationally televised games on Sunday on TNT. So I guess that's their way of trying to shift momentum from this Four Nations face-off for them. But it's going to be a little odd, truthfully. A week and a half of just what we've been looking for, and then back. It feels so strange to be back to reality for the NHL, and unfortunately for the Panther side of things, because we got to put this back to Panther centric here. They're going to be without Matthew Tkachuk probably for a while. I can't necessarily put a timeline on it. I pulled muscles in my lower body, and it's not just something that you could just do by stretching it. And that's going to be tough and you know what? Credit to Matthew. He tried. And you know what? For the Florida Panthers side of things, winning the Stanley Cup, he was owed this opportunity to at least give it a go. I know there might be people out there who could be mad that Matthew Tkachuk tried doing this and then he's going to miss some time. But I see it as the Panthers owe him I am not angry about him trying to give it a go. How about you?
So I think this is what baseball fans felt like during the World Baseball Classic when they were afraid that their players would get injured. Now, being a Marlins fan, it didn't really matter if our players got injured because we were going to lose. But at least that's the assumption at the very least. But I mean, in 2023, we actually made the playoffs. So, but in any case, I can see the point of that. But at the same time, I mean, these international type of tournaments, this right here, the World Baseball Classic, I feel it feels so much different. It feels so much better. And the players obviously want to do it. That's the difference here. I think, as fans, let's say you're a Leafs fan, and if something had happened to Auston Matthews, you would have been absolutely devastated. As a Panthers fan, now that the cup was secured, yes, repeating is going to be, it would be really, really fun to do that.
It's going to be tougher now, man.
It will be tougher. They're in first place to start off now from this break. And you're going to have some guys that are a little bit more tired in Sam Reinhart and Sam Bennett. But I don't know. With how well it went for the most part, I didn't really see as many complaints as regards to injuries or players getting injured during this. I mean, in fact, NHL fans are the ones that like them going to the Olympics too. So it's different in hockey in that sense. I think most fans want these international tournaments because they're just fun.
Yeah, and you just see how it gets I think when it comes to the monotony of a season, that's really why these tournaments are just so amplified when it comes to it. I mean, and you're getting even the casuals to get in on this. And I'm going to repeat something that I said on yesterday's show. the fact that the Panthers won the Stanley Cup and an international hockey is coming back at the same time is only growing so much momentum in South Florida for hockey. And listen, I know this is Locked On Panthers, and John Cooper is the head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I have learned so much to appreciate how relatable he has been to his players, to fans, just knowing what it means to fans overall. I know the needle would have moved even more had USA won, but there's going to be someone out there, even in the United States, tens, hundreds of people who are going to register for hockey, who are going to be part of these learn to play programs, who are maybe there's someone 50 years old who always wanted to get into it, and they're playing drop-in hockey at least 2 or 3 times a week now after this tournament. That is what a tournament like this is going to do for the sport as a whole. And that is what I could appreciate for something like this. And that's why we need more. And I'm once again in agreement with Connor McDavid that the physically taxing part of these best on best, it's best to not have it every year, because once again, we need to miss something in order to appreciate it. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the possibility that it could get stale if you see it all the time. Yeah, the IHF, that's hard to say really fast. IIHF World Championships happen during the Stanley Cup playoffs, actually, and then guys go out. Guys are eliminated, or even guys who are eliminated in the regular season, they'll go off and play for their international teams that way. But it's obvious that the big thing is the Olympics, and guys want to play in it. They don't care what part of the world it's in, and the NHL, for their own business, as much as maybe owners don't want their players going out and getting injured. I mean, look how much buzz this got for hockey. Look at ESPN comparing the NBA and the NHL on First Take and all their shows. This wouldn't have happened if it was just a regular All-Star game. So I do think that events like this should be limited, much like they should start limiting the outdoor games as well.
Which we'll have one next Saturday at the Horseshoe.
Yeah, but try and make sure that they can build up momentum towards it, build a want for it because of a lack of it, and growing the game that way. Because I think each of these leagues are trying to balance that out completely. Basketball does well with the Olympics, and it's great for them because it's during their off season. NHL is a little bit tricky because the Winter Olympics are during the season, so it makes it tricky. But they've sacrificed the players now for this, and everybody loved it. So they're willing to do it for 2026 now, and they're planning the World Cup of Hockey again to try and do a before season tournament, which they've done before. It's going to be good. It's going to be great, and we just want more of it. So as long as they can, once again, yes, temper it down every couple years, every 3 years, every 4 years, however you want to do it, and they'll get back to it. So I'm all for it. But obviously the NHL is going to want their own cut of it, because with the IHF, it's their tournament. They're the ones running the Olympic hockey stuff. So, and then with the International Olympic Committee. So that's why the NHL wants their own little thing. That's why the World Cup of Hockey is coming back.
Yeah. And thankfully we're getting a taste of it. And honestly, there are fans out there who just want to see a flag, a country stamped. And when we take away all the advertising, all the score bugs, what we saw was just USA Canada. Yeah, it was called the Four Nations tournament, but at the end of the day, we got what we wanted, a matchup between two teams at a best on best. And that is really what made this ultimately successful. Yeah, I believe it would have been successful either way if we saw Finland or Sweden as one of the teams. But the fact that we saw any kind, that is what is gonna stick with a lot of fans for multiple years. And you know what? We're gonna continue to talk about this 5, 10, 15 years from now as some of our best memories when it comes to just international hockey. So that's a wrap. That it was successful tournament. I do want to say I'm going to tip my hat to Team Canada and the players, especially the Florida Panthers who are on there. So hopefully we have another one of these, and hopefully maybe even a repeat of at least a game getting into overtime. As an American, I hope it's not a Canadian win, but at least I hope to see another thriller come next year in Milano Cortina. Francisco, any last words before we wrap up this Four Nations tournament?
I mean, as far as myself, this historian, Marlins historian, it's spring training, and the team is going to have a bunch of guys that are, you won't know who they are, and a lot of people won't know who they are, and I don't even know who they are, and we'll see how many games they can win. Maybe they'll win 64. I have no idea. It's just to avoid 100 losses. But I'm doing stuff there now because baseball is turning on. I'm a bit cynical with that. But NHL season is going to keep rolling on. So we got the Panthers coming back, and I'm excited for that. I'll obviously be continue posting clips and everything like that I do on my channel or my socials with that. And I just want the team to get healthy, sustain the course that they've got so far to be ready for April, because that's when things are a go.
Yeah, and let's hope for that, and we will monitor the situation with Matthew Tkachuk and going forward, which this is our last show of the week, but follow the socials as we will update you here on what could happen come just less than 48 hours from now, as the Florida Panthers are going to take on the Seattle Kraken. Mackie Sebuskevich is good to go for that after leaving the last after leaving the Blues game and then missing the last two right before the break. But Francisco, thank you so much, and see you soon, my friend.
All right.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Francisco Oporta. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.